Welcome, everybody. People are starting to join. I'm Andrea. I'm your host for today. At the other end is Oji. We're going to give it a few minutes for people to just join us. I thought we could start the chat, have a chat. How's it going on your end today, Oji?
It's going well. I find myself, I live in Austin normally, but I find myself in San Francisco for some meetings. And so I'm literally doing this on the run. So it's going to be fun. It's going to have a conversational vibe to it, I think.
Excellent. Excellent. That's what we like. So people are starting to join in. We still have a couple more minutes before we officially kick this off. So to everyone joining, don't worry, we haven't started. But we thought we'd jump on the line, see how everyone's doing. If you want to say hi, we are monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So if you guys just want to, well, we'll try something. I want to try something that Adam tried when he jumped on with us, which is if you're paying attention, say hello in the chat. We want to see your hello in the chat. That's a good icebreaker. There we go. Hey, Paul. Hey, Dustin. People are saying hello.
I think we should do a puzzle or something so we know people are actually paying attention.
Oh, well, people are saying hi. For the next time, I'll try a puzzle and see what happens. But this is great. People are saying hi. Hey, everybody. So many people.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Why did the chicken cross the road? I don't know.
I'm kidding. Quirky sense of humor. It's my fault.
Oh, good. Okay, so it's 4 o'clock, which means we can get this started. Thank you, everyone, for saying hello. Super excited to have you here today. I'm Andrea. I'm your host for today. I'm part of the ProdPad team. And with me today is former VP of Calendly, Udezue. Oji's going to talk to us today about how to build highly viral products. So with that, Oji, the floor is all yours. I'm going to just shut down my camera for a bit while you talk and not distract you. But if you need me, I'm right here.
Right. So hi, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about how to build viral products. Well, actually, maybe more precisely, how I've learned to build viral products, which, I try to be a thoughtful person, a thoughtful product leader as well. So hopefully you can benefit from my experience. And at the end, I'd love you to sort of ask questions, the harder the better, so that we can jump right into it. So I'm going to try and have a conversational style with this. I might throw some questions out to the group, and hopefully we'll all learn together. All right. So I think a little introduction is warranted. So I think of myself as a product and design leader. I've been leading product design teams for some time, sometimes engineering teams as well. Ex-Microsoft, ex-Bridgewater, ex-Atlassian, ex-Calendly. I've also spent some time building my own startup, which was called Intermingle. Is gone now. I built this for 2.5 years when I lived in New York, and divested that and moved to Austin, which is where I live today. And then I think lastly is I spend a lot of time in early stage companies. I'm really obsessed with the art of creating something from nothing and trying to satisfy customer needs that we perceive in the market. On the board of Techstars in Austin, created Kernel Fund, which is a sort of a super angel that invests in Africa and Southeast Asia, because I'm passionate about those places. And I really spend time advising women, people of color, and helping them create investable ideas so that they can get started on their startup journey. This last few months, I've been actually stepping up my time in, talking to people and helping them build better companies. And sometimes it's actually later stage companies, sort of pouring my time into something I call product mind. How do people build great products? And I'm obsessed with that. So why should you listen to me at all? I have worked on a lot of viral products or been in companies that have built highly viral products. And so because I'm sort of like a product anthropologist, I've spent time studying the techniques and the art of doing this stuff Atlassian, I own HipChat and built the new version of HipChat called Atlassian Stride. Well, of course, we had Confluence in the company and we had Jira in the company. And at Microsoft, I worked on a huge amount of viral products. Actually, was on the original, what we call the people user experience team in Windows. Windows Live Messenger is just one of the things that I've worked on as well. So hopefully I can bring to bear some of those lessons here today. What I'm going to do, though, is talk a little bit about, I think Calendly, my most recent leadership experience, is a place where I'm going to draw on in terms of examples for this conversation. It's hard to ask, I guess I'll throw this question out to the group. Who's aware of Calendly? And I'm pretty sure if I stared at the responses, is anyone going to respond? Let's see. Let me just take a quick look at.
If it helps, I'm familiar with it.
Right. So the thing I wanted to say about, and I just jumped ahead. The thing I wanted to say about Calendly is that Calendly is a little bit like an iceberg. If you use Calendly individually, it helps you schedule. I use Calendly religiously at this moment right now. And the most visible part is that it helps you stop the negotiation of when you want to meet. So when you want to meet is a very old problem, and it's always exciting when a product focuses on old problems. The way I think about it and I joke about it is that immediately in antiquity, maybe like, who knows, 20, 30,000 years ago, that the first village split into two, and there was maybe a mile between them, people needed Calendly because immediately you wanted to hang out with your buddies and you had to send a message across. And every time you want to schedule some time with somebody, it turns into messaging. The problem with that is that, if I say, hey, I'm available this time, and you say you're available this time, and it doesn't quite work the first time, we have to go back and forth. And if you think about it in terms of a business environment, some of those meetings don't get consummated because it's so hard to go back and forth. It takes 2-3 days and people just lose interest. Now, in the context of you being busy, in the context of you trying to strike a deal with somebody, not having those meetings happen 20-30% of the time actually costs you money. There's so many opportunities that I would never have had if I didn't have something like Calendly, because I've just lost interest in them. So basically it helps, it takes away a chore from your life, basically. But the reason I say Calendly is an iceberg is that a lot of people who use it as individual productivity, consultants, business CEOs, or people who are just overscheduled, don't realize there's a team aspect to Calendly, right? So Calendly has these functions where if you're a team of salespeople or a team of customer success people who need to meet with customers as part of your job, it actually helps you a ton. It helps you make it easy to schedule yourself and somebody else with a customer. It helps you do round robin, so offer the same time to 10 people at the same time. So it's very sophisticated, but people don't see those functions, and those functions are pretty deep. So Calendly actually has an enterprise function. So in many ways, the way I thought about it is the backbone to a modern customer success and sales stack. And if you look at Calendly, a lot of its growth is actually on the enterprise side and people adopting it as teams. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit so that you can understand sort of some of the things I'm talking about in a second. So I'm going to talk a little bit about traction, like how successful has Calendly been and how has virality helped it. It's not just virality, clearly, but other things. So Calendly kind of launched in 2014. By 2015, it had 10K customers in it. They were free, which is very significant. And by 2017, they had booked millions of meetings. Now that's a North Star of Calendly. If you're booking meetings for people, they're helping you schedule, then they're being successful. And, and at that point, it was a paid product. In 2018, 2x cumulative growth. 2019, 2x cumulative growth. And I think they're going to exceed that in 2020. So that's the journey. Now, you would be hard pressed to find companies or products that have this kind of success. Every time, doubling a company's growth year on year is harder and harder. Going from 30 million to 60 million or whatever it is harder each time. And Calendly has been able to do that. So let's jump into the meat of this. So what is virality? Now, this is very important to establish because, people have misconceptions about two key concepts I'll talk about: virality and network effects. Virality really isn't about clever hacks. It is fundamentally customer augmented marketing. When your customers help you spread the word about your product, then you are being viral. There are various kinds of this kind of virality, and we'll sort of talk a little bit about them. But the reason this is important is we are in Atlassian, we used to call it Cambrian SaaS. There's a huge amount of competition. There's a lot of desktop software and maybe early web software. So people are moving all these things into the cloud with AWS or Azure at the back end. So there's a huge amount of software products in the market clamoring for attention. Now, if you don't have virality, then you have to spend so much money on marketing to get your product out there. So products that are viral become more successful, become more profitable because you don't have to apply the same amount of marketing to get the word out for your product. Everyone knows that the big thing, it's so easy. You can build some great software for $100,000 now, which you couldn't do. You needed $5 million to do it like 10, 15 years ago. So the problem isn't build risk anymore. It's distribution risk. How do you get the word out? So, I mentioned a couple that it's not about clever hacks. When I talk about virality, a lot of people will remind me of certain examples. The most classic example, and this is going to show, I guess, date me a little bit, is Hotmail, right? If any of you remember Hotmail at all, any of you sort of, so if you're old enough to remember Hotmail was this revolutionary email product that it was all online. When Hotmail was around, really, the alternatives to Hotmail were a very old Mozilla Netscape email client was POP3, and you had to, and it was very laborious to get to your email. You had to, dial into your freaking modem, and then you connected your POP3 client, and you had to remember to set the POP3 client to not download and erase all your mail from the server, right? And then, and connected and it downloaded your mail. That was how you did it. When Hotmail came along, they put it all on the web. You logged in, you put in your credentials, and it gave you an email address, and it was efficient. You didn't have to do any of that client stuff, although you still had to dial into your ISP. But the great thing about Hotmail was that it had this tagline at the bottom. It appended it to every email you sent. So because a lot of people had email, not the 2 billion people, but hundreds of thousands and maybe millions had email. When I sent an email, it said, hey, do you have your own Hotmail? Get your free Hotmail account. And a lot of people took that option. They got a free email account through Hotmail. And people think about it as a clever hack. But I guess what I want to say is that virality is not a clever hack. People forget that Hotmail solved a ton of problems for email users. It took out the whole dialing with your POP3 client and fiddling with it, right? And so by doing that, they compressed the workflow significantly. So it's not just about a tagline. Hotmail solved some real problems. So let's talk about then products that were viral without being hacky. The original iPhone was really, really viral. Long lines, AT&T only. Some people switched from Sprint, from Verizon to sign up for Hotmail, to sign up for the iPhone, which was unheard of, people switching carriers at the time. But the iPhone doesn't have any weird hacky virality. It just does not. Maybe formal marketing is considered hacky, but I don't even think that it is. It is. That's what it is. I think that the iPhone was viral because it was a revolutionary product from a revolutionary brand. Now, contrast that with another brand that tried to be viral. I don't know if anyone here remembers OnePlus. OnePlus is an Android OEM that still makes amazing phones. When I remember when the first launched the first one, it was really gimmicky. You know, you couldn't just buy one. You had to make a reservation. They handed you this little golden ticket and you had to wait your turn. They tried to create FOMO. I would say that OnePlus is a relatively successful product, but that virality was not confirmed. I don't think it didn't. I never bought one. I was actually put off by it at the time, and I'm sure millions have. But there's a huge difference, and the question is like, was it a revolutionary product in a revolutionary category? I don't think it quite made it to that stage at the time. The last product I want to talk about virality without any weird gimmicks is Uber. Uber is crazy viral. In fact, there's a very natural experiment. I live in Austin, and in 2016 or 2017, Uber was banned, right? And there were a lot of, small native solutions in Austin. Austin built ride-hailing apps were built, and after a year, Uber, figured out legislative path to get unbanned. And once it came back, it sort of wiped out, Uber and Lyft wiped out all the local competition because it's super, super viral. People just want to use it because they can use it in every city in the entire world. But when Uber started, now no one knew it. I learned about it maybe in 2011 or something crazy like that. It just was really good. It solved a problem that we've had and we didn't know we had, which is we've been hailing cabs for 100 years. In great places and weird places. But think about the path to hailing a cab is you hail it, you get in, you fumble around for your wallet at the end. You have to stay in a minute at the end to sort of pay the cab driver. And Uber reduced this to just a click on your, on your phone. It was just amazing. So my point, sort of what I'm alluding to, is the root of virality isn't clever hacks at all, because I've illustrated, hopefully from these examples, that it's not about anything weird that you do. It's not like being like OnePlus. You have to solve fundamental problems. You have to take a workflow that is 5 steps long and compress it to 1. If you can do things like that for customers, then you can build a viral product. So these are great examples, hopefully, and hopefully you're following along. But let's talk about the root. How do we distill that into something that you can use for your startup, something you can use for your relatively successful company, or even a large stage company? What is the root of virality? And I think after much study and pouring and spending time at night looking at this stuff and working in great companies that do viral products, I think that, the root of virality is having a great product in an attractive category. Now, when I put this up, I feel a little inadequate. It feels super vague. So let's maybe go deeper. I think that, the root of virality is more precisely a great product that redefines a category. A lot of people talk about defining new categories, but defining new categories are super risky. There are very few new problems under the sun, and it can be, and if you can define a new category, you should, but it's really, really hard work. But redefine a category simply means looking at what exists today and seeing, can we do 2x better, 5x better, 10x better than what it is? In Calendly's case, Calendly wasn't the first to market. There's a company called Acuity Scheduling that launched in 2006. and Calendly was launched it started in 2013, launched in 2014. But Calendly set out to redefine the market. Previous products were set up as business tools, but Calendly wanted to create something more accessible, something prosumer, something that can be used for businesses, but can also be used for your personal life if you're very busy. But also, Calendly understood that the person scheduling with you deserves a ton of respect. They deserve a user experience that is beautiful, that is approachable, and that is super fast for them, because they want to save time too. And I think that having that insight helped redefine the category. Today, Calendly is the premier scheduling tool, the thing that people want to be. But they had Tope, the founder, had the foresight to redefine what this category is. And because of that, he's won the market, even though people started before him. So how do you then redefine a category? What is required? By the way, we're still going to get to sort of techniques of virality, but I did want to teach you the fundamentals because I think the fundamentals is where all the techniques come from. And if you get this mindset right, you'll be well on your way. But so how do we redefine a category? Well, this one is hard, but the things I said previously about how Calendly did it offers some insights and clues to how to go about this. So I don't know precisely how you define a category. I think you can do it in multiple ways, but I do know some ingredients which will help you. The first ingredient is really customer obsession. You have to be obsessive about inhabiting the mind space of the customer. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. The first way, and the easiest way maybe, is to experience that problem in a full spectrum way. So a lot of founders, a lot of business people just sort of, they build a thing that a problem that they experienced. Now, the danger with doing that is you don't experience a full spectrum of the problem. So you sort of is like the blind man and the elephant. You only see an aspect of the problem. And so because you don't see it really well, even though you try to solve something that it's not big enough. It's not wide enough for you to attract millions of customers. The other way is to do customer discovery, is to study your customer obsessively, stay where they are, watch them work, interview them. A little bit like Jane Goodall on the apes. She lived in Kenya watching the apes, and she knew everything there was to know about them. What do they struggle with? What are their aspirations? What does their workflow look like? Who do they have to talk to? Who do they have to please? And I think this is very important. If you want to build a successful product, I've never found a founder who did that without being super customer obsessed. It's very, very hard. The second ingredient, I think, is inspiration. It turns out that when you spend a lot of time in the problem space, that eventually, if you're smart, a flash of insight will come to you. The French call this coup d'oeil, which is a flash of insight, from the word coup. And, I think it's a sort of a word that sort of goes into, it's sort of related to Napoleon. It's like how he won so many wars. And he spent time studying all the big battles of history. And so whenever he came to a battle, he was bringing to it 1,000 years of study, right? If you study your customers, you are going to find flashes of insight that help you win. The other day I was thinking about a product problem, about software for manufacturing, and I had a flash of insight about voice interfaces, right? Because manufacturers need their hands, people who work on the line. So those kinds of things that you ruminate on as you study the problem will help you. So let's talk a little bit about what to do practically about how to redefine a category. If you're already building a product today, which most of you are, what are the things to think about to be more viral, right? What are the practical tool sets? So let's talk about that tool set in a second. So first of all, try to build products that are social or for teams. Now, tools for teams help teams accomplish a goal together, right? Tools that are social help a group of people communicate and socialize. A really good example is Slack, right? Slack isn't gimmicky, and actually it doesn't, it's not super viral in any weird way. Like, you can have a skyscraper with Slack in the at the bottom, bottom company, and the person at the top will never know that Slack existed because there's no viral. It's just viral within a company, but not across companies. But Slack is a perfect social and team tool. It helps teams organize, but it also helps them communicate. And so what I want to say is try to gain your customers in bunches, right? Now, you can design, for example, a to-do list. I use Todoist. That is just for you, right? Which makes a ton of sense. You want to write notes. People have been doing that forever. But one way to make it viral is consider doing a to-do list for teams, right? If you do a to-do list for teams, you have a better shot at grabbing bunches of customers. So if people adopt it within any one company, then they sort of get outside the company and they say, hey, we're using this team tool to do our to-dos. And then the next group of people who adopt it are 10, 20, 30, 100 people. So constantly think about how to make the products you're building teams. How do people show up in the product? How are they exposed? How do people share with them? That's huge in terms of being viral. The next one is self-service. One of the things I joke about when I talk about the eras of software and how software has evolved is that we're all making Coke, and if you think about Coke, it's so easy to approach. You can buy it anywhere. There's lots of vending machines. Now there are places who will sell it to you over a counter, but whatever, they want to make it as easy as possible. You have to do the same thing. Your software has to be self-service. People come into the product. There should be no barrier between demand and satisfaction. A lot of people confuse this with freemium software, but it's all related. Let people discover your software, try it out, use some part of the functionality without humans involved. This is really important. A lot of people have sales teams today that help with the smoothing and onboarding. This advice is not in contest with that. You need to make self-service possible in your product, period. And for people who want to sign $5 million contracts, of course you need salespeople. But those two things have to be done. It's not one or the other. The next one is just in-product growth. This is what people think when they think about gimmicks in the product. Now, up to this point, I've counseled you to not think about virality as that, but it's a small component of virality. Do in-product growth hacks, make onboarding great, massage it until you've sanded down every part of friction that people have. Look at all the great onboarding experiences in software around you and copy them, right? But don't copy them blindly. Test them, see how they work for you. Sometimes people have found actually that a little friction, asking people why they're here, making them make some choices up front will help later in terms of setting up an environment that is perfect for them and personalized. And it's about what I'm going to talk about next. In-paid chat, you see that when you land on a website, they're like, hey, I want to help you. Some of that stuff works. Invitation links, people experience the software and they forward it to someone else. You have to make sure. One of the principles I think about in terms of in-product growth is take power from administrators and give it to users as much as you can. In Atlassian, when we built HipChat Next Generation, the first 10 people to join a room or a chat of a company, not a chat, but to sort of join HipChat or HipChat Next Gen, we give them the power to invite more people. Usually in HipChat, the old one, it was reserved to the administrator. So my virality was limited by the administrator. But I gave the first 10 people the power to, I want to just a shout out to one of my favorite PMs, Ron Adams, who helped build that on my team. But the first 10 people could invite everyone if they could. Then after there was a critical mass, then we that sort of medium user power went back to the administrator. So we took power from the administrator and gave it to the first 10 people so they could seed the environment. So always think about how to smartly take power from the administrator. You can give him power to override it later, but choose smart defaults that help your product be more viral. One of the more advanced topics on virality is customer aware products. In software, we still build things, products, as if one solution could meet the, a million people, or 2 million people, or 10 million people. And this is very puzzling because software uses the brain of computers. We basically would be infinite. We could build a product just for one person efficiently. In consumer packaged goods, when I want to build something for one person, there's something they do called a line changeover. So you build Fanta, and the same line makes Sprite, and so on and so forth. It costs a lot of money to turn a little manufacturing line to produce something, pineapple flavor of Fanta versus the lime flavor of Fanta. We in computers can do this with great efficiency. So going back to the point of we're all building Coke, one of the things that you have to think about in terms of building virality is develop software that absorbs the user's preferences and sets it up the way they want. People have said to do this in multiple ways, dark mode that reacts to the time of day. But what I really mean here is, score your customers. Are they sophisticated users? Maybe they need a simpler interface. Do they have a million things they've already done? Maybe they need a more powerful interface. Score your customers and change the user experience to suit them. Anticipate a little bit more about what they do. This is still sort of an emerging part of what we do, but I believe in the next 10 years that, some of the most viral products will be products that adapt to customers, and people will use ML techniques to make this even more possible, so that you can say, given what we know about you, here's the best way to do X and Y and Z. One of the last things I'll talk about is great support. People overlook this all the time. And this is not in the product. If if customers will come to you and ask questions about how to use your product through your support team, I think you better blow their socks off. You better. Good customer support consistently leads to conversions and great experiences. I can't tell you how many times at Calendly people were about to churn, or people just had a good interaction with support that made them stay a customer. It's really, really important. Okay, so that piece. So the last thing I want to talk about is network effects. This is sort of the holy grail for virality. Network effects are much better than virality. And let me define this, because people sometimes are confused. Network effects is when adding one more customer to your user base unlocks value for everybody else who's already there, right? And so it creates pressure for more people to join. For example, one of the things we did at Calendly was something we euphemistically call Calendly to Calendly. But if you're already a Calendly customer and you try to send me a link, when I jump into the user interface, I can see my schedule, right, laid over yours. So I know, so I don't have to pull up another screen to see my schedule, which is what most people do. Even that is fast, pulling it up, side by side, but it's already laid out for you. So if I'm a Calendly customer, because it already knows my calendar, it says, okay, here's the best time to meet with the other Calendly user. That's network effect. Every time one more person joins Calendly, my ability to save 2 more seconds, 5 more minutes becomes better. So think about network effects. There's a huge amount of material out there about how to design network effects. And there are different kinds of network effects. I encourage you to look it up. But when you think about your product strategy or your product features, ask yourself, how do we build more network effects into this? And it's not just for communication tools. I think it's for any kind of tool. Let me give you an example, and we'll move on from this. Microsoft Word, DocX. That document structure is still the gold standard. Everything understands, everything can import Word documents. And because of that, more people want to support Word documents and so on and so forth, and ad infinitum, so to speak. So Word and the doc extension has created network effects. So there are different ways to do this, and it's something that you should study and figure out how to do that for your own product. So I'm close to the end here, and I want to make a few points. Virality is not a gimmick. It has to be earned, and it's done by, and there are various kinds of virality. Some are in the product, some are not. And virality is about customers augmenting your marketing in some way. That's what it is. It's basically cheaper marketing on the back of your customers. The way to do that, the way to accomplish that is a great product that redefines a category. And the way to do that is be obsessive about your customer and be inspired. Get your flashes of inspiration that help you. So work to redefine your category. Think about it sideways. Think about it from the perspective of your customer. Obsess over your customers. Marinate in them, test screens, run A/B tests, talk to them obsessively. I think every good product team should spend 20%, assuming you're not drowned. If you have a good ratio of developers to product managers, say 1:6, you should be spending about 20% of your time talking to your customers. There's no greater investment. If you build features that people don't use, you're literally throwing away money. Every product manager commands $1 million+ in resources. And so the only way to really sort of make sure that investment is correct. Not everyone is Microsoft. You don't have the time to get this right, the third version. The only way to do that is to be obsessive about your customer. Talk to your customers 20% of your time. Set that goal. It's important. And and then step back to see if inspiration strikes. Here's the thing: if you are a product manager and you are being obsessive about your customer, you will be inspired. You will find the right solutions. I guarantee it. You will. Okay, so I think that is the end of this. I'm happy to take any questions. You can follow me on Twitter, on Medium, and recently, I've been spending time. My wife is also a product executive, and we've been spending time thinking about how to build better products with something we started called Product 9. So if you want to follow me after this or talk more after this, you can. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We will also be sending everyone your details, so they will be able to reach out. We do have a couple of questions. Just as a reminder, please drop them into the Q&A. So Brian would like to know, and hey, Brian, thank you for coming. What do you do sorry, let me read this again. Looking at Uber and compared to its competitors like Lyft and Sidecar, what do you think made Uber more viral?
I think that Uber was, I don't think it was first, actually, once I dig in. Well, Uber was really complete. They thought about a problem, they redefined and they created this category and made it really thoughtful. They were the first most thoughtful ride-hailing app that solved the problem super end-to-end, and did it in a way that people loved, right? Other small decisions helped. The brand Uber was really easy to recognize, easy to see, easy to say. But I think mostly they built a really, really good product. They were thoughtful about it. It goes back to what I said about a great product that redefines a category. You can have a shitty product that tries to redefine a category, it's not going to work. Or you can have a really good product that is more of the same. And so I think Uber had the alchemy of doing that really well. And I think, look, Lyft is super successful, but unless they do better than Uber, which they have never done, then they're not going to beat Uber. And that's just how it works. If you want to beat someone who's at the top of their game, you have to do something like 2x better than them, not just what they do. So Uber stays king until someone helps redefine that category further.
Cool. Thanks for your question, Brian. The next question is, can you speak a little bit about when pricing should be free or when to charge?
Yeah, I actually don't see these questions. Okay.
That one is on the chat. I'm trying to I'm
Okay.
trying to read both the chat and the Q&A.
I'm a strong believer in freemium, because what you want to do is create an urgent reason for people to adopt your product, and there's something they don't question at all. And so I believe in really robust, generous free tiers, because here's the thing: if you continue to solve a problem, you are always going to find parts of it that can be charged for. I wish I'd learned about freemium much earlier, because some of the first products I tried to build by myself, it just, the business side of it wasn't, I didn't think about freemium early enough. So be generous with a free version, because it will start people engage with your product is about erasing barriers. At Calendly, you start out with essentially the entire product's power for free. And then after 30 days or 15 days, some of it is still free, but some of it is paid. And that's what I would do. Give people a reason to build a habit around your product. And when they need more power, when they sort of learn it more, you can unlock that with paid parts of the feature. So almost like, it's a weird question to answer, because I that's what I believe, and I think that creates the least friction. It goes back to the principle of self-service. I think freemium is sort of part of that. It's part of that puzzle.
Cool. I'm going to jump to this question by Robert. You mentioned virality as a product opportunity. Traditionally, I see this as a marketing owned strategy. How would you go about bringing product into the fold and getting PMs excited about it?
You mean they're not already excited about it? Virality is much more powerful when it's product expressed. Like I said, it's really about customers. And okay, the reason it's more powerful when product expressed is it's the most efficient way to do it. Imagine doing customer campaigns that are like OnePlus, that are like viral and edgy and stuff like that. It just costs a ton of money. If the product has it built in, then it's built once and it uses the same scale as digital products, which is the marginal cost of it is close to zero. Look, I think that if you follow like OpenView on LinkedIn, there are lots and lots of great articles about why virality and the concepts we've talked about, like product-led growth, and which is really about making sure people can adopt your product easily. Very congruent with the concept of virality. Why companies that are doing those things are more successful. And in your startup, I'm sure everyone wants to be more successful. So if you want to build a case, look for OpenView's content that sort of makes that case really clear in terms of ROI, in terms of success, and share with your product managers.
Cool. Thanks for your question, Robert. The next question is from Ian, who would like to know, outside of signups, what would be some key common metrics which could help to understand how viral your product is?
It's a really good question. Well, look, start with K factor, which is related to signup. So K factor is really how many invitations and how many people accept those invitations for your product. Like, how many invitations do your customers send and how many people onboard because of those invitations? So I think that's K factor. Honestly, I think that is the key metric. Like, based on customer interaction, how many net recommenders are coming through. Now, sometimes it's not always, you have to do some sophisticated tracking. At Calendly, when you booked a meeting, we asked you if you wanted to become part of Calendly, if you wanted to sign up for a Calendly account. Now, some people signed up, but some people didn't sign up at that time. They didn't need it at that time. Some of them later came back, though, a month later. You could cookie them, and then came in through the front door and signed up after being exposed to a Calendly meeting. So if you are sophisticated, you can track even when that accept is disconnected in time, and that's what you should be trying to do. But it's really about people coming through because someone else recommended them, and so it, in many ways, signups is a huge amount of what it means to measure virality.
Cool, thanks, Ian. The next question is from Philip. How should I, as a senior manager, spend time with customers? Is this insight I should be gaining through osmosis through my team, or something I also need to do?
Awesome. Some simple question. So do tickets with your customer support team. One of the things that my CEO pushed me at Calendly is, I schedule time, every product leader, every product manager, and every dev lead or designer, every 2 weeks they did tickets with the customer support team. They had to see and sort of feel the pain of customers. So it's really generating customer empathy. So that's one way. It's not particularly efficient, but it's a good discipline to have. And because, tickets can come in and they can be so random that you need a little bit of volume to make it statistically significant for you. The other way that PMs on my team got familiar with customers is that they would sort of sift through the database, right, of customers and send out Calendly links. And we did this as team-wide. So it was a round robin, right? Any customer we selected, put in a big basket and solicited could sign up and talk to a PM. And so we would use this to do research or just talk to customers and ask what they were struggling with and what they needed. So sometimes it was general, sometimes it was pretty directed. We selected even more carefully because we're working on something. But use Calendly or something similar to have one meeting or two a week where you're talking to customers you already have. And you can either use that to have a general conversation with them or direct a conversation with them. And product senior managers should do this. But more importantly, individual contributors should do this religiously. So take tickets, schedule time with random customers if you need to, and talk to them, even as a senior manager, even as a chief product officer required.
Great, thanks for your question, Philip. Next question is from Dustin. Can you talk about how friction can work in your favor?
It's a good question. So, depending on how sharp your marketing message is, people walk in your front door who are dilettantes, who are not your ideal customer. Everyone should understand that your product isn't, it's for a particular kind of person who has a particular kind of need in a certain workflow. But because people just use websites, people walk in and they're not sure what your product will do. They've never explored it. So it turns out that people who walk in the front door some of them are ideal and some of them are not. Now, if whatever your marketing message is or your description on your website is bringing in people who are not ideal, who are just checking it out, those people are not going to stick around if the software isn't what they expected. And so these people tend to be the most amount of churn. They will sign in and look around and then they will bounce. So in that world, introducing friction like, why are you here? Sort of your lightweight onboarding that's ask questions and says, what do you want to use this software for? What is the scenario? And giving people hints about what they can expect from your software. That kind of friction sometimes weeds people out because they don't answer the question well, or it gives them hints that make them realize that maybe they're barking up the wrong tree. That kind of friction sometimes helps you because it basically weeds out the customers you don't want before you have to do it and start counting as churn later down the funnel. So if you have a really robust top of the funnel, sometimes it's worth investing in these things so that you get the kind of customers you want at the bottom of the funnel and you can really serve them well. And they're not a waste of your time.
I like that. So essentially find your perfect customer.
Yeah. Awesome. But if just check to see if you're getting a lot of, even though you're successful and you have product market fit, that a lot of people are abandoning it. It might be that you might need to introduce a little bit more friction subtly, but you have to run A/B tests to make sure there's not too much to weed out the people that are undesirable.
That's cool. The following two questions are fairly similar, so I think we can kind of answer them at the same time. Who, in your opinion, has done a great job in converting from a freemium model to a paid subscription? Or who were you surprised to see that they actually worked on their virality if you expected them not to? So who's done a good job? Who do you think has done a super awesome job?
I think Calendly is great. Atlassian is amazing across their product line. Zoom is amazing. DocuSign is amazing. Look, if you look at post and pre-IPO companies, you're going to know which ones have done this really well, who have, free, premium pro plans. And that is almost everybody now, right? This is now the way people build software. People know it's more efficient. The word is out there. So I gave you some examples, but I feel like they're obvious examples. I'm actually more interested in things that are not obvious. And I can't think of any right now. But some of those companies I've talked about, some of them are even public. Also think about Lucid Chart. They're more than a few.
I was going to say Miro has done really well for themselves.
Miro, Figma, everybody want to talk about that is worth its weight has done this really well.
Excellent. We have another question from Ben. Have you encountered situations where virality is potentially blocked or prohibited due to an ethical restriction or view? I like this question. Product ethics. If so, how did you approach these discussions?
Unfortunately, I don't have I have never seen this. Let's go back to definition. Virality is customer assisted marketing. How could this be unethical when your customers are like someone else, telling everyone else to give this a shot?
I'm thinking of something like TikTok or Instagram, where it can, or Snapchat, where it can very quickly potentially turn unethical or have certain side effects about how people are sharing or what people are sharing. So that's the way I'm understanding that question.
So that is different, right? That is what people think is morality, that I'm sort of asserting that it's not the full picture. In those products, those consumer products, you are the product, you are the monetization. They're stealing your attention and converting that into virality. And they have all these experiments they do, and the things they put in the user interface that people sort of, in a Pavlovian way, click on to make them more viral. And like I've said in this talk, you do have to consider those things. But with great power comes great responsibility. At that scale, those companies should be much more circumspect about deploying those tactics in product growth, because sometimes it's just in aggregate, it leads people to spending time with them that they're not spending in their lives, or abuse, and so on and so forth. So I have friends in Facebook, some in TikTok. For companies at that scale, absolutely, it's an ethical thing. What is you have to think of, for every of those viral in-product virality things they deploy, what is the impact on 1 million people? What is the impact on society? And if that impact is negative in aggregate, they should not do it. And I'm so glad that I was actually sitting through a webinar from Facebook, one of the Facebook experimentation leads about this. I'm so glad people are thinking about our ethics. Software is typically amoral. We have deep fakes now. People are just building crap without taking responsibility for it. But I think there's a small groundswell of people thinking about things ethically, which they should. if other disciplines and sciences behave like we do in software, the world would already ended by now. We should just take a lot more responsibility. So TLDR, if you serve millions of people, your in-product growth should have a council of ethics to allow you to know when to deploy and when to say no. Sort of, that's my short answer.
Absolutely. And if it helps, Ben, we actually hosted Sharon Lowe, who is the head of product ethics at Microsoft. And she talked through how they actually have an ethics committee. So if you want to check it out, that's on our YouTube channel. We have a few more questions that have cropped up. I'm going to try to read through these really quickly and see which one I can pick. Can being a more connectable product help improve the viral effect? For example, strong developer platforms and APIs to use other products to help accelerate the effects by making you a more important part of these customers' ecosystems.
Yes, it is. It's an interesting angle. I hadn't thought about that, mostly because it doesn't fit into the idea of customer assisted marketing. I think the other framework is that in information workers, for example, there's so many pieces being built by so many different people that we need a better sense of how these Lego blocks connect, right? We haven't solved that problem. I think in many cases it's a product problem. But I do believe that, yes, you can gain crossover virality from other products. Let me give you an example. We know, for example, that people who use Calendly and Zoom are stickier and actually have a better NPS. They like the products working together. And so a total viral strategy is connect to highly social and highly viral channels. It can be Facebook, it can be Zoom, it can be other things. That should be part of your viral strategy. I think about that as what I call in-product viral optimizations. I did that at Intermingle as well, where if there was a successful interaction in the product, we would post it because we're social and we had the credentials, we'd post it to Facebook if people wanted. And you can see that in a lot of e-commerce tools as well, in Shopify and so on and so forth. So I think it's a piece of the in-product virality puzzle, yes. But you have to be careful. It's not just the API. Usually you have to build, initially anyway, you have to build your own bridges to the most viral channels out there. And over time, your API will create a moat around that, but you have to be sort of selective.
Excellent. Do you have time for more questions before we get to the end of the hour?
I do.
Cool. The next question is, can you talk about virality in enterprise-focused markets? Excellent question. Particularly in places where the customer time to value is long due to the complexity of the product adoption.
Yes. So I don't really believe in many ways. I'm going to be a heretic. I don't believe in enterprise-focused markets. I think that's a misconceptualization of, it's not a very customer-centric conceptualization. What you're really talking about is really complicated software that is bought by the CIO, right? And the right answer to that is make it simpler, make it self-adoptable. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. You can break off, imagine you had like a very deep scenario. Break off a part of that, a frequent, urgent part of that use case. Make it available to customers. Think about making it free or generous trial. And then connect it back to the deeper use cases that you have, right? Have it easy to be a hop, skip, and a jump from that to the deeper, more complicated use cases that you have. Because it's very, very hard to make your complicated CIO sold software viral. Well, you can think about it in terms of use cases and workflows and say, what workflow is high frequency and it's urgent? in my big enterprise focused workflow. And maybe you can reproductize that so that it's easy for people to try. And once they do that, they get a sense and a taste. You know, product people, we are drug dealers, right? Give people a taste, a free taste, get them addicted.
I both love and hate that you said that.
and then maybe people will like your viral enterprise focused markets. By the way, this is total metaphor. If any
don't do drugs, don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs, kids. If anybody's listening that's law enforcement, I was a total joke.
Oh, people are saying they're going to take it to their CEOs tomorrow. Do not blame it on us.
ProdPad and Udezue are
no
not involved in that. No.
We've got one last question here, which I think is really interesting. What business-oriented services do you see taking off in Africa now that mobile connectivity has matured in the past few years and smartphones have become much more prevalent?
I think the real question is what business-oriented services won't take off. I think preventing, there's so many more, the reason I invest in companies that invest in Southeast Asia and Africa is, well, first of all, as someone who gives out capital, the money goes further, right, to build companies, and people are much more scrappy. But it's really about voids. I call it tech-enabled business. It has nothing. It's not even close to where we are in the U.S., where there's so much technology, even though technology is concentrated on the coasts. The point is that if you want to serve those countries, look at the voids, look at where people are spending money and where people need faster workflows, and people can afford those faster workflows. The big impediments are, like average income. Can people pay for these things in a way that makes you profitable? But think about these markets as somewhere between 5 and 15 years behind the markets in the US. And every single thing that we spend money on now, people will eventually spend money on in Africa and in Southeast Asia. And so it's almost like, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. You just have to do it in a way that is cost effective and you can actually make profit from. So it's a big question. Everything that's taken off here will take off there, is the short answer. And some things, when made local, will even be more successful.
Excellent. Very cool. With that, we have reached the end of the hour. 1 minute passed, so we timed it really nicely. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Udezue, for joining us today. That PMs as drug dealers has stuck. People are still repeating it back. If anyone leaves with anything today, it's going to be PMs or drug dealers. So thank you everyone again for joining. We will be sending out the recording over the next few days, as well as contact information if you have any questions left. We will see you next month with Wes Bush from Product-Led Growth. Thank you again, Udezue.
All right, take care. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and talk to you on the flip side.